because we don't have a special interest. We don't have a corporation. We don't have essentially a sugar daddy, big corporation or an advertiser saying, oh, yeah, hey, run a bunch of our ads about how fracking wells are so nice and clean. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We'll give you millions and millions of dollars. I mean, this is how it works. And then the people at the network go, that oil company gives us millions and millions of dollars to advertise fracking. We shouldn't talk about how fracking is bad. That's how it works in corporate media. And that's why it's so important that we have Free Speech TV. It's why it's so important that you call now, 877-378-8669, and make a gift of whatever is comfortable or appropriate for you, whether it's $5 a month for a book, $10 a month for a book and a water bottle, $20 a month for the book, the water bottle, and planting trees, $30 a month to plant more trees. Please call now. Thank you. Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of...
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. 6 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. And as I opened the show with an hour ago, Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel is here in town. He was addressing AIPAC earlier today. He will be addressing Congress at the invitation of Speaker of the House John Boehner, without bothering to inform the White House tomorrow. I mean, the White House obviously knows now. And Dr. Trita Parsi is on the line with us, the founder and president of the National Iranian American Council, NIACC. He's also the author of A Single Roll of the Dice, Obama's Diplomacy with Iran, in addition to a number of other just absolutely brilliant books. The website for the National Iranian American Council is niacouncil.org. And Dr. Parsi, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Can you frame for us the Netanyahu perspective on what's going on and the Iranian perspective on what's going on?
Yeah, so if we take the Netanyahu perspective first, we can first talk about what he's saying and what I think a lot of people by now have concluded is what he's actually thinking. What he's saying is that the deal that the United States is negotiating with Iran, together with the rest of the members of the Security Council's permanent 5 members plus Germany, is a deal that ultimately would leave Iran with certain elements of nuclear know-how and technology, which then in and of itself would be an existential threat, even though, of course, the deal will be closing off all of the paths for Iran to get a nuclear weapon. The Iranians would have to sign additional protocol in which the outside world would have almost complete transparency into what's going on in Iran's nuclear program. Despite all of this, Netanyahu government is saying that this is still an existential threat. What I think most people are starting to conclude is that Netanyahu is actually not that concerned about Iran getting a few thousand centrifuges or having a rather small nuclear program operating. What this is about is that he does not want to see the United States and Iran sign a deal, reduce their own tensions, while Israel will continue to have tensions with Iran. They're afraid that the United States, by signing this deal, would essentially accept Iran's position in the region, its advances geopolitically. From the Israeli perspective, they believe that Iran is aiming for hegemony, and as a result, it needs to be stopped, not be accommodated.
Yeah, although, and Iran, was one of the very first businesses to open in Iraq, was the National Bank of Iran or the Bank of Tehran or whatever it was. But Netanyahu came to the United States in 2002 and talked to Congress as a citizen of Israel and said, please go ahead, invade Iraq. I mean, if you want anything in the world that helped Iran was our invasion of Iraq. But it seems like really what he's objecting to, tell me if I have this right, and then I want to hear your take on the Iranian perspective, is what Netanyahu is objecting to is the United States and the UN's the Security Council having a positive, rational relationship with Iran.
I think you're absolutely right, because if the United States has a positive, rational relationship with Iran, gets Iranian help to defeat ISIS, which is the main threat in the region right now, where will that leave Israel in America's considerations for the region? Right. Israel is not particularly helpful against ISIS, nor can it be. It is a small state that constantly says that it needs things from the United States, whereas Iran has things to offer. Now, that's a simplification in many ways, but I think that is part of the fear on the Israeli side. I described it in detail in Treacherous Alliance when I interviewed a very large number of Israeli officials, and it was quite clear to see that they have worries about Iran, and some of those worries are quite legitimate. But this idea that going first from saying that a nuclear Iran would be an existential threat to now saying that a nuclear deal with Iran would be an existential threat, I think by now the Prime Minister of Israel has lost most of his credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, from the Iranian point of view, what's going on?
I think the Iranians have now negotiated with the United States in the P5+1 for about 2 years. These have been very intense and also very productive negotiations. The interim deal that they signed last November, or November 2013, has been very successful. It has made the world a safer place. The Iranians have stopped doing a lot of the sensitive activities in their nuclear program. They have shipped out a large number of their stockpile. They have eliminated large parts of their 20% enriched uranium stockpile. These are very, very positive things that the Prime Minister of Israel, frankly, should thank the United States for. But what I think the Iranians are looking at right now, as they see Netanyahu coming to Congress without being invited by the executive branch and doing everything he can to sabotage this deal, is I think from the Iranian perspective, they're looking to as a litmus test to see who runs America's foreign policy. Right. Is it the President of the United States, or is it the Prime Minister of Israel?
Wow. And apparently there's a legitimate doubt about that?
Well, again, if we have a scenario in which the President of the United States has staked almost his entire foreign policy legacy on this deal with Iran, he's really committed to it. He has threatened to veto legislation coming out of Congress that would undermine these negotiations several times.
Right.
And I've frankly never seen him so committed to anything foreign policy-wise. If he's that committed and still the Prime Minister of Israel can sabotage it and make sure that the President doesn't get a deal, then I think we wouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised if some countries draw the conclusion that Israel is more influential than the President of the United States.
Wow. Now, if we are successful in Netanyahu being ignored is probably not quite the right word, but whatever. If Netanyahu does not succeed in blowing up this deal, and the United States works out something with Iran that essentially takes the whole nuclear issue off the table, so we can stop, getting hysterical about that and bloviating about it and whatnot. That's no longer a point of conflict between our two countries. Would the next step be, in your opinion, Dr. Trita Parsi, would the next step be for the United States to start talking to Iran about either or direct Iranian military, indirect Iranian military, the Hezbollah connection to Iran, maybe using Hezbollah against ISIS? Or am I just like in la-la land here?
No, not really. I mean, Hezbollah is already fighting ISIS right now in Syria. What will happen after a deal? I think first there will be a period in which you're not going to see a significant amount of increased cooperation between the United States and Iran on non-nuclear issues. I think the president will probably use the first couple of months after a deal to calm down the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, and the Israelis, and kind of tell them, look, we've made a deal with Iran, but we haven't abandoned America's allies in the region because we made a deal with Iran.
Right. What would the impact be in Iran? Iran?
On Iran, I think it will be immense, because I think this deal is very important to ordinary Iranians, because this will help determine who defines Iran for the next couple of decades. Is it going to be people like Ahmadinejad with his crazy, aggressive rhetoric and his very provocative foreign policy? Or is it going to be more moderate people like the current President Rouhani and his foreign minister, Dr. Zarif, who got his PhD here in the United States? If it is the latter, I think Iran may move in a very constructive direction in which it can become a very positive player in the region, and relations with the United States hopefully can improve. If the deal fails, however, then I think I and many others fear that we're going to see Iran move in the opposite direction. The conclusion in Tehran is going to be that, Rouhani tried negotiations, it didn't work, so the United States is not going to go back to sanctions and pressure, and Iran will do the same, and we will see a reignition reigniting of this escalatory, confrontational foreign policy between the United States and Iran.
Right. Yeah. It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. Dr. Trita Parsi, founder and president of the National Iranian American Council, NIACC, the website niacouncil.org, and author of A Single Roll of the Dice, Obama's Diplomacy with Iran, among other just absolutely brilliant books. You've got to come on one of these days. We'll talk theology again. Thank you, Dr. Parsi,
so
much
for having me. Appreciate it.
Great having you with us. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day, my take, your take, and all